than to contest and possibly win the election will amount to him taking the presidential oath for a third time. Still on politics, activist and co-convener of the hashtag Bring Back Our Girls movement, Aisha Yesufu, says her decision to venture into politics does not mean she is abandoning activism or advocacy. Yesufu stated this on a television show where she explained that her years in activism made her realize that merely pointing out problems was no longer enough. She maintained that activism and politics ultimately pursue the same goal of serving the greater good, although through different processes. According to her, political office offers the constitutional authority needed to implement solutions to the issues activists and activism have long highlighted. Take a listen.
Why you chose to leave activism and decided to get involved in politics? It's a bit curious.
Yeah. So one of the things that I realized is that with activism, you understand, I use my constitutional right to be able to talk about issues and point out the problems that we have. And it has gotten to a place from 2018 that I realized that as long as I sit back and just focus on just discussing the problems or pointing out the problems, those who are in office who go in have the constitutional authority. It depends on whether they listen or they don't listen. And what we have in Nigeria is that usually they don't listen. And for me, I'm seeking for constitutional authority to then be able to profile solutions to these problems that I'm looking for. So it's one thing to keep making demands on people who usually don't even bother to listen. And one of the things for me I do realize is the fact that activism and politics, the end results are the same. It is the process to which you get to the end result that differ. Those in activism, it's for the greater good. They make demands. While those in politics, which is also supposed to be for the greater good, they solve that problems looking at those demands. But unfortunately in Nigeria, the Nigerian brand of politics is a politics that is not seen for the greater good, but for a few who think that it should be about their personal interest. So there's a convergence between activism and politics. And by the way, I'm not leaving activism. I'm not leaving advocacy. I'm taking advocacy into politics. And you talk about the National Assembly. That's where the real activism should all be about. We saw the debacle that has been going on within the National Assembly. People just sitting down, changing the rules. The standing rules are just changed anyhow, can be changed by anyway. So it's all about activism. And you find out that when you talk about the legislative arm of government, it is the one that's supposed to be the representation of the people's voices, holding executive accountable, ensuring that people that are nominated before they are confirmed that they are truly people that will work for Nigeria. So there is so much within that. And for me, I'm not leaving advocacy or activism. I'm simply taking advocacy and activism into politics. And outside, yes, I do.
Away from politics to move over to xenophobia, where more than 130 Nigerians living in South Africa have registered to voluntary repatriation following renewed xenophobic attacks and worsening economic conditions in the country. President of the Nigerian community in South Africa, Franz Onyekwelu, disclosed this during an interview on television. According to him, the number of Nigerians seeking to return home has continued to rise since the federal government began arrangements for evacuation, fight, and flight for affected citizens. He said many Nigerians in South Africa are struggling to survive due to economic hardship, unemployment, and immigration-related challenges. He explained that several Nigerians are also facing delays in renewed residence permits and securing legal documents needed to live and work in South Africa. Onyekwelu added that many affected Nigerians now believe returning home would offer them a better chance to build their lives, especially as rising medical bills and living costs continue to make survival difficult for foreigners in South Africa. And now to insecurity, no fewer than 13 persons have been reportedly killed by gunmen in Ngbra Zongo community of Kwal district in Bassa local government area of Plateau State. Several other residents were also said to have sustained varying degrees of injuries following the attack, which occurred in the early hours of Friday. A member of the community, Philip Alanga, told newsmen in Jos that the attackers stormed the area at about 12 a.m. and began shooting sporadically while attacking residents with machetes and other dangerous weapons. According to him, the assailants moved from house to house during the attack, leaving many residents in panic and confusion. They moved from one house to another, attacking innocent people, according to Alanga. He added that several persons sustained injuries while many families fled into nearby bushes to escape the attack. Another resident of the community, Chigozie Roku, disclosed that 3 of those killed during the attack were pregnant women. The Secretary General of the Irigwe Development Association, IDA, Danjuma Auta, confirmed the incident to journalists in Jos, describing the attack as tragic and condemnable. Auta lamented the recurring attacks on communities in Bassa local government area and other parts of the state and called on security agencies to intensify efforts towards protecting lives and property in vulnerable rural communities. He urged security operatives to swiftly track down those responsible for the attack and ensure that justice is served to deter further violence in the area. Efforts to reach the spokesperson of the Plateau State Police Command, SP Alfred Alabo, for comments on the incident have been unsuccessful so far as of the time of this broadcast. When I move to legislative matters, where the Senate yesterday made a dramatic U-turn on its controversial amendment barring first-time senators from contesting for presidential office and presiding office, reopening the race for Senate President and Deputy Senate Presidents in the 11th National Assembly. The reversal effectively throws open the 2027 Senate leadership contest to all elected senators, regardless of tenure, and in attempts to restrict the race to ranking lawmakers returning from the current assembly. This is no fewer than 7 governors, 15 former governors, and Mrs. Betty Akeredolu, wife of late immediate past Ondo State Governor Rotimi Akeredolu, have indicated interest in going to the Red Chamber of the National Assembly next year. The Senate's decision followed mounting criticism that the amended standing orders conflicted with provisions of the 1999 Constitution. The Senate rescinded the amendment through a motion sponsored by Senate Leader Okpayemi Bamidele, APC Ekiti Central, and presided over by Deputy Senate President Jibril Barau. The motion entitled Recession and Recommittal of Order 2 and Order 3-1 of the Senate Standing Orders 2023 as amended was overwhelmingly adopted through a voice vote. The development signals a major shift within the ruling APC towards a more competitive process for determining the leadership of the next Senate rather than restricting eligibility through tenure requirements. And now to educational matters, where the National Examinations Council, NECO, has revealed that over 35 million candidates have participated in its various examinations since its establishment 25 years ago, highlighting the Council's expanding influence on educational assessment and national development. Registrar and Chief Executive of NECO, Professor Dantani Wushishi, disclosed this during the gala and award night held in Abuja on Thursday as part of activities commemorating the Council's Silver Jubilee anniversary. Speaking on the theme, celebrating 25 years of NECO's excellence in educational assessment, Wushishi said the council was established on July 10, 1991, following sustained public demand for a credible, efficient, and nationally responsive examination body. According to him, NECO emerged from the recommendations of several government panels and committees set up between 1977 and 1997, all of which emphasized the urgent need for a homegrown examination institution capable of addressing Nigeria's educational realities. Wushishi described the anniversary as more than a celebration of institutional longevity, saying it also offered an opportunity for reflection, recognition of achievements, and renewed commitment to innovation and excellence in educational assessment. He reaffirmed the Council's determination to sustain high standards through technology-driven examination processes, stronger collaboration with stakeholders, and continuous investment in human capital and institutional reforms. A major highlight of the event was the conferment of NECO's highest honor, the Lifetime Achievement Award, to former Registrar of Joint Admission and Matriculation Board (JAM), Emeritus Professor Dibu Ojerinde, who served as NECO's Pioneer Registrar for 1999 to 2007. You're still on to the World News at 12 right here on Voice of the People 90.3 FM. We'll go straight to our analysis segment where we have Chukwuma Okoro. He's a journalist and author of the 2023 book, The Future of Politics. More than 70% of his prediction on the future of Nigerian politics have come to pass in less than 3 years, published on Amazon. Mr. Okoro, it's always a pleasure. Thank you very much for joining us on the News at 12.
Good afternoon, Solomon. Thanks for having me.
Now, let's start with our first news item, which is on politics, which is Jonathan's 2027 presidential bid. We thought this was a bygone conclusion, but it looks like Jonathan contesting for 2027 is rearing its head again. What's even more confusing is the fact that legal practitioners are not united on his eligibility on contesting, which is why sometimes we get some Nigerians calling for a revamp of the 1999 Constitution under the excuse that there's a whole lot of ambiguity. This is definitely one of those ambiguity where we don't know if he's eligible to vote, because both sides of the divide will cite the Constitution as the reason why he's either eligible to contest for the 2027 election or not. What's your take on that?
Well, my take on it is that most times Nigerians blame the Constitution. I do agree and accept that there are loopholes in the Constitution.
Lots of loopholes, as a matter of fact.
As a matter of fact, but basically, I don't like going into a problem of whether it is the Constitution that has left us where we are at the moment. I think it's more of human failure, the failure of individuals, to operate and run the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. There is no perfect constitution in the whole of this world. As a matter of fact, in the UK, their constitution is not even written. Conventions and all of that. And so it is this same constitution that we are running that Nigerians are blaming practically for all our problems, and not facing the human angle. It was the same constitution that Olusegun Obasanjo ran for 8 years. Yar'Adua used the same constitution. Jonathan used the same constitution. It was when Buhari came into office that we started having the problem of, the constitution is this, the constitution of that. As a matter of fact, it was a failure of the personality in office then. So I don't like the fact that Nigerians...
It's more of human human factor rather than the constitution itself. But isn't the human factor, because of interpretation, when there are too many interpretations to a particular situation, isn't that the problem? It's when different people can interpret it,
many ways. Exactly the point. The law itself is a confusion. The law itself is a confusion. Unfortunately, for law and humans, law is not accurate science.
Okay.
Law is not accurate science.
It's not 1 + 1 is equal to 2.
It's equal to 2. So law is a derivation of our moral codes. And so in morality, people disagree. This is right. This is wrong. Depending on people's background. I do accept that we have moral values. Like respect for elders and all of that. But there are minor differences. There are bloodlines where people disagree.
No, but there is moral value and there is a code. I mean, something that has to do with life and death.
Okay.
You know,
I don't even want us to go into the value of life and death, into the debate of moral values being about life and death. In some crimes,
I mean, when the court have to be dragged in for interpretation.
Exactly the point. And so that is why my premise is that, unfortunately for us, law is not accurate science. So it is open to interpretations. You know, call 3 lawyers, put up one argument. You have 4 or 5 opinions. What does that tell you? So if we have to take it back to constitution, I am telling you that there is no perfect constitution in the whole of this world. So it has to do with the human factor. Look at what Donald Trump is doing in the United States of America. Which of the presidents, recent presidents, did
have ever done that?
Yes. So it speaks to what we call idiosyncratic variables, the personality of the person in office.
But still citing the U.S. president, in as much as Donald Trump has been trying to stretch the courts to its highest limits, one thing is for sure, there is a general interpretation that what he's doing most of the time is wrong, which means it's not ambiguity.
Now, that speaks to the strength of the institution.
Exactly.
In place. So when you talk about moral ambiguity, it speaks to the bias of the Supreme Court judge. I mean, there are instances where you have 3 to 5, which means they never agree. But because they have majority of the judges say, well, this is what it should
Are you
be.
still talking about the U.S. now?
Everywhere.
Okay.
Everywhere.
Because
Like
I'm sure, like even in the U.S., the court has been bastardized in the sense that, but as you said, before Donald Trump came, what we had was 9 Supreme Court judges. Nobody knows their ideology. But now you begin to hear conservative judges, Supreme Court judges.
As a matter of fact, they know their ideologies and biases, but most times those things don't play out in their judgment. Because before
except
you appoint,
now.
Yes, before you appoint a Supreme Court judge in the United States, people want to know, is he pro-Democrat? Is he pro-Republican? Is he pro-choice? Is he pro-abortion? In all of these. What are his views on immigration? Americans like to know. So that when he gets into office and his biases begin to play out of sync with what is expected, you know,
people will know that
but in this case, we do it based
situation.
on promotion. I mean, you are the next in rank and all of that. But I want us to get out of this, you know, and get into the issue of Jonathan.
Yeah.
Which is Jonathan qualified to run?
So what side of the debate are you?
Now, the debate is that I'm on the side of the fact that there is a court in Akure, in Ondo State, that has said, Lucky Ayedatiwa, by the letters of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, you are not qualified for another term.
That should be a premise.
Yes, it should be a premise because it was delivered by a court of coordinate and concurrent jurisdiction. And unfortunately, or somehow curiously, this case that was filed by this Mary Fidelis has been there for a very long time. So why is the judgment just coming up today? The one that was determined in Ondo State, in Akure, Ondo State, was filed much later than the Jonathan case. So why is it that there was decision on that of Ayedatiwa and now they are coming up with the Jonathan presidency? And Jonathan has been very, very cagey about, are you going to run? Anytime you ask him,
Which is a problem politically.
anytime you ask him, I'm still holding consultations. Anytime you ask him, well, my people have said I'm consulted. What is all of this? And so there are conspiracy theories around the fact that, well, they might be using him or trying to use him to stop certain people or to divide the votes of certain people in opposition and all of that, trying to make it, well, more than 3-horse race.
And the problem is, why is Goodluck Jonathan trying to make himself being used like that? Because his indecision too, it's
a problem.
It shows.
Or is it a stabilizing factor? Some people are also saying it's a stabilizing factor to the extent that some people are very.
How is that a stabilizing factor? It looks more like chaotic than stabilizing.
I mean, it's an argument, it's an analysis. Some people on the other side are saying it might just be a stabilizing factor, so that when he says, "Hey, I want to throw into the ring," and people will say, "Hey, well, I think we need to start doing good because the records are still there. You know that his government did well in terms of the econometrics and all of that. Nigerians see.
Depends on who you ask.
Depends on who you ask. And so Nigerians, the facts are there. You don't have to travel far to see them in terms of inflation, in terms of unemployment,
I'll argue with you with that on that in the sense that it's all of a sudden we're now seeing Jonathan's administration as a good one simply because the APC administration has become a million times worse than what Jonathan gave us.
How do you determine that? Is it not because of the metrics?
Well, his administration was worse economically than what he came to meet in power. Some would argue that.
Who will argue that?
It was worse than the Tinubu worse than the Olusegun Obasanjo administration.
So
it was worse than the Jonathan administration.
No, Jonathan.
Worse than the Yar'Adua administration.
Okay, now let's look at the metrics.
So the bar is quite low in that regard.
Let us look at the metrics. At least the data doesn't lie. Data don't lie. Obasanjo left inflation at what rate? 6.1%. And in 6 years, Jonathan still left it at 8.3%.
6.8.
What was the exchange rate between Obasanjo and Jonathan? What was the exchange rate? The interest rate between Obasanjo and Jonathan. So if you do the comparison, you see that Nigerians are still better off than were 15 years ago than today. So that is what speaks to the fact that a lot of Nigerians are saying, well, if we could have single-digit inflation under Jonathan, whether it was by his making, whether it was because of the policies inherited and all of that, if he can take us back to that level, it's better we go back to that level. And so when you speak to these metrics, Nigerians are saying, well, I don't care so long as we go back to the Jonathan era. And so they say the same thing about Buhari and Obasanjo and Bola Ahmed Tinubu.
Yeah.
So when you look at these things, and it's difficult for anyone to say, well, we are better off now than then. So exactly my point. And so he might be playing a stabilizing factor according to certain quarters, to the extent that people are scared when Jonathan says, I want to step in, and Nigerians become nostalgic, about his government and said, if at that time we were buying a bag of rice for 7,000 naira, and now our purchasing power was stronger then than now, if you could bring back that magic, if you could reinvent Nigeria, so why not give him that opportunity? So that is the argument on one side. At that point, they say it's a stabilizing factor to the extent that the government becomes jittery to the extent that, well, we might just have to do good by the people so that they don't keep looking at the Jonathan era. That's the stability that they talk about.
Now, there is rumor about what political party he's going to be flying under, if indeed he is going to fly. And the larger portion of the rumor is that he'll be coming to NDC. How, and then if you go on social media now, you're seeing the Jonathan Kwankwaso. It's like the Peter Obi now is being taken out of the equation. It's now a Jonathan Kwankwaso. How do you see that playing out?
It's a difficult thing. All these things are within the realm of speculation. Jonathan, has he registered with the NDC? Nobody knows. And the window closes today. So if he doesn't register, he could register digitally by Sunday 12 a.m. Up until 11:59 a.m. And that makes it that he is a member of the NDC.
So if he doesn't register, is he still eligible to contest under PDP? Because technically he's still a PDP member
of the PDP, and so you have to bring in PDP into the equation. And so will Enwike allow Jonathan to run? They fell out at some point. You understand all the politics. And so is he going back to ADC to go and meet Atiku Abubakar? Is ADC sure to be on the ballot? Meanwhile, the court is going to decide today whether David Mark or Nafiu Bala is the authentic leadership of the ADC.
Which is another problem for ADC.
Which is another problem because it will have to run to appeal and up to the Supreme Court level. Are they able to do that all within the window of May 30?
The INEC timetable.
For the submission of list of candidates. So it's a big thing for Jonathan. I don't know, and Nigerians are asking, why is he playing this kind of game? Why don't you just play the statesman role? I mean, I think he's about 67 now or thereabouts.
Is this damaging his reputation? Because Jonathan is already on a saintly pedestal, as it were.
According to you and some people. A lot of people will not agree.
How so? Why?
Why wouldn't they? A lot of people believe that, well, he was so feeble that he couldn't control the presidency. A lot of people believe that the worst rot in the NNPCL, in the Petroleum Ministry, happened under his nose, and he couldn't do anything.
And it was they also say because of his incompetency that ushered in the APC government that has
and all of that.
But be it as it may, you know, humans are very forgetful. Most
Nigerians, not humans. Nigerians.
Okay, Nigerians, and most of the times, which still take us back to the argument of how things have been in Nigeria that have led up to this APC. Usually, Nigerians just remember the most recent thing. And the most recent thing, according to a lot of Nigerians, is how he peacefully handed over the country to APC when it was looking like APC were ready for a bloodbath. And he came out to make that famous statement, "No human blood is worth my political ambition." That in itself has placed him on a particular pedestal. And some will say he should remain there. Him trying to come back into politics and playing this game, it's beginning to sour, beginning to leave a bad taste in the mouth of lots of Nigerians.
Exactly the point. So he is trying to destroy whatever reputation that is left of him. Because some Nigerians will say, like you said, well, I mean, it was Jonathan that led us into all of this mess. If he had resisted and did the right thing at that time, we probably wouldn't be where we are today. A lot of people also give him credit for saying, hey, I mean, my presidency, my ambition is not worth the blood of any Nigerian.
Peaceful transition of power.
Peaceful transition to power. And so if he has had international engagements, we have presidents, even the ones that practically pushed him out of office, send him to some parts of the world to go and do the good job for Nigeria and Africa. A lot of people think that, well, he should remain at that level instead of this hanky-panky that he's playing, or people are trying to play with him, and he's not saying
and he's playing along.
And he's playing along and all of that. But I think that comment that presidency or presidential election is not computer game says that, well, he might not just be open to accepting to run. One is,
then why don't you just come out and say this? Say it.
Why don't you just come out and say, I'm not going to run?
Because there's already enough problem in the opposition parties, and whatever coalition they're trying to put together that is not exactly working out in a bid to push APC and Bola Tinubu out of office. This is further adding to the problems in the opposition party and further confusion, because for months now the opposition fight has basically been between Peter Obi and Atiku Abubakar, despite the fact that they are in the same party. And then with the defection of Peter Obi from ADC to NDC, people are beginning to predict another 3-horse race, a repetition of what happened in 2023, albeit on different political platform. Now bringing Jonathan into the equation, that's a whole lot of chaos.
That's the conspiracy theory I talked about. Some people, Nigerians, are thinking that, well, why are they using Jonathan? And if the presidency, NDC has done its presidential ticket to the north, to the south rather, and so we have Peter Obi there. So what is Jonathan going to do? Is he going into ADC or is he going to NDC? And so that is the problem that will be resolved with time, Be it as it may, by the 30th of May, all of these things will understand what it is. But for now, I think it is mere talking point for us, and we'll keep talking about it the way Nigerians are talking about it. And I'm sure that between now and the 30th of May, we will know who the presidential candidates are. It's after that that the permutations will begin to speak to the realities of the moment.
Now, let's... still on party politics, Aisha Yusufu have come out to talk on his 2027 presidential ambition. Obviously, he has defected to NDC following Peter Obi. But that's not the major talking points I want us to take a look at. It's the news all over social media that the obedient movements are disillusioned about Peter Obi's political decision, and they've detached themselves from Peter Obi. And I was like, okay, if the obedient movement have detached themselves from Peter Obi, Aisha Yusufu is a huge, part is a huge part of the obedient movement. How is that going to work if? Because I'm not sure without the obedient movement, she has any real chance as well. How do you combine this?
And so the thing of it is this: anybody telling you or we seeing it in social media that the obedient movement is detached from people.
I mean, it's all over the news, actually.
I mean, that is the work of fifth columnists. It's not true. It is not true. It is the work of spoilers. They are trying to. So who speaks for the obedient movement? Satanko. What has he been saying lately? And in the pages of newspapers and social media, blogs, what you hear the obedient movement say, wherever Obi is, that is where we are. So who is saying that Obi is detached from the obedient movement? They are not. It is the work of spoilers. They just want to create impression, obedient movement has dumped Peter Obi. Nobody, in fact, the obedient movement is stronger than it were now, because a lot of people,
at least that's what I would think, at least when Peter Obi was in ADC.
And that is the reality. That is the reality. You saw a lot of movement, into the ADC. The moment Peter Obi and Kwakwanso, the OK movement, joined the ADC. There was this surge in all parts of the country, especially the north.
Yeah.
And now, the moment they left, can you imagine now, within 3 days of Obi and Kwakwanso getting into
over 10 million
registered members online. And so all of these people are either Kwakwansia or obedient movement. So where is that coming from? That, we know what happens in communications.
Now when Peter Obi was still in ADC, the obedience movement, as far as I know, were divided.
They were divided because their position was, if you don't get the ticket, we'll leave.
That was one half of the obedient movement.
No.
The other half.
It was an agreement of the obedient movement. If you don't get the ticket in ADC, we'll abandon you.
No, but that's not what I get generally, based on my own findings and even from calls we get while we are doing our show. We have one larger half of obedient movement that I say it has to be Peter Obi or nothing.
Yes.
Then we have the other half, albeit a little lesser than this other half, saying that at this point we don't care who takes who takes Tinubu and APC out of office. If it's Atiku Abubakar that is going to do that, then it's fine and good. If Peter Obi doesn't get the ticket, Atiku still gets it. It's still good for us either way.
Now, those were lone supporters of Obi, styling as obedient movement. And
really?
Lone supporters of Atiku Abubakar.
Oh.
The official statement of the obedient movement under the leadership of Yunus Atanko has always been, after their meetings, they come out and say, if you don't get the presidential ticket in the ADC, we won't go there with you.
I mean, it's possible for the Tanko to come out and make a general statement, but that doesn't reflect 100%.
No, it does, because the obedient movement has a leadership. They have directors. Director of mobilization, director of what, and so they conduct meetings, they hold meetings from time to time. And so when they hold a meeting, and he comes out to say, this is what the obedient movement had said. So you have lone voices here and there saying, well, we are not going to. But the consensus of the obedient movement is that Peter Obi should be on the ballot as a presidential candidate, not as a running mate to anybody. And that has been their position, even in NDC. And so when you hear people say, oh, it's now between Jonathan and Kwakwanso, naturally it will happen. People who don't want Obi to be on the ticket. I mean, if the government and the ruling party have been very consistent in trying to ensure that certain people are not on the ballot, so you don't need to travel far to simply understand, well, that there might just be, and some contrarians might just be the ones behind this idea of, oh no, Obi is no longer in the news and all of that. It is Jonathan and Kwakwan. So that is all not correct. It's all politics.
Now, let's take a look at the implication of Peter Obi's defection to NDC. This is, for most political analysts, is going to be another three-horse race, a repetition of 2023. Wouldn't that be an advantage for APC, just like it was in 2023?
How? Three-horse race, a winner must emerge.
Yes, you know, but at the end of the day, it was an advantage for APC in 2023, and this will be another advantage for APC in 2023.
How many of those 8.9 million votes are still intact for the APC?
Because parts of the what made the coalition thick, the ADC coalition thick, was the fact was that political calculation, the Atuku vote plus the obedient vote is going to surpass the Tinubu vote. Now it is going to split again with Atiku maintaining some of his vote. And Peter Obi maintaining some of his vote again,
now,
which will definitely
how much of Bola Tinubu's votes will he maintain in 2027? Given the conditions of things in the past 3 years,
I mean,
don't you consider that a lot of Nigerians?
People were not happy with APC during the Buhari administration, but they still voted for APC again.
And now the same people that were not happy, with Buhari, APC's administration, that still said, "Well, let's try this one," are saying, "Where is Buhari? Please come back." God, can you resurrect Buhari?
How exactly would that work? Because Buhari may have been the president, but theories will say President Bola Tinubu was the president leader behind the scene.
He said,
he was the one that introduced Buhari to Nigeria.
He said, "I was national leader."
On paper, yes.
And on paper, and I didn't
but in reality,
I didn't have an opportunity to contribute to governance. That was what he said. And so when we talk about...
Do you believe that?
Really? Of course, I believe at some point he was shut out of the presidency. Buhari never wanted Tinubu to become president. It was a master stroke. Last minute. If you go back to that primaries, the convention that produced...
Well, he in the campaign trail, he said, "I'm going to continue from where Buhari stopped." Isn't that an indication of it's going to be a continuation? It's the same party.
No, what he was just trying to say is, well, we are together. He was trying to create some kind of cohesion, because at that point, Nigerians knew that there was a split. The president Buhari supported Lawan Ahmed to emerge as president. Until what happened? Was it Tambuwal or who? No, it wasn't Tambuwal, it was in APC. Until they played their game and Tinubu took this thing. Now, the problem is those 8-point-something million votes, how many of them are still within the Tinubu camp? I don't have a problem with three-horse race. But the problem is that Nigerians are tired. Nigerians want a better life. Nigerians want to be able to go to farm without having to look over their shoulders. Nigerians want to drive on good roads. Nigerians, if you get into your room, you tap the wall, touch the switch, and there is power, electricity. Nigerians want to go to offices and work. Nigerians want to go to marketplace and buy goods, food items at cheap prices. They want better life. They want well-being, better education, and all of that. Is this administration giving it? The answer is no. And so those 8-point-something million votes, they are no longer there for him. They are elsewhere.
Okay, we're going to see how that works. Away from politics, let's go to the xenophobic attack in South Africa, where some days ago we heard about 130 Nigerians are planning to come back to Nigeria. We hear rumors of that. Even some high-powered Nigerians in South Africa have resigned from their high-powered job to relocate to Nigeria. That was confirmed today in a television interview where the Nigerian spokesperson, came out to confirm it, that 130 Nigerians are planning to move back to Nigerians. What's your take on that? To Nigeria, rather.
Well, it's better for them to come back. A lot of Nigerians that travel outside, to go look for greener pastures, don't even know what outside holds for them. If you travel through the length and breadth of this world. You see, in so many parts of the world, you see Nigerians that are stranded. You know, people who left here with high hopes because maybe their compatriots, their relations, their friends, and all of that had gone abroad and maybe ran into law, you know, and made money and came back. Some of them the good way, some of them the hard way. And so every other person wants to jump on a plane and go to any part of the world where his friends are making it. And when you go there, you are faced with the reality. Unfortunately, some of them, when they go there with high hopes, those hopes are dashed and they don't come back. They are not that they don't want to come back, but they are even unable to come back. Why? Because some of them have overstayed, and if it is in parts of the Far East, if you overstay, you need to pay what they call overstay charge. You know, and if you don't pay to the last dollar, you don't leave the country. And so if they have an opportunity, like in this instance, where government is saying, okay, we can work out all of that for you to come back, those people will be glad enough to come back home. I mean, you want to stay alive at home or dead in another man's country? But there's a bigger problem. I don't know whether they have resolved it, but because at some point we heard that the federal government said, hey, if you are trying to come back, you have to take care of your fare, you know, your airfare and all of that. Yes, at some point. So I don't know if that has been resolved. Now, Onyekwelu says a lot more people, more than 130, are willing to come back. And so when you see probably people in high offices trying to resign are saying, hey, let me go back to my country, they might have worked out arrangement with those nationals, with the multinationals, to either bring them back to Nigeria or post them elsewhere. That is the reality of the moment. The worsening thing is that we are sending to South Africa a man, you know, who, I mean, is an untested diplomat.
Yeah.
This is the first time he's making a shot at diplomacy. And in the midst of this crisis, our president finds it convenient to send the man of FFK, you know, to go and resolve the problem in South Africa. It's concerning to a lot of Nigerians, including myself, you know, given the temperament of somebody like Femi.
Yeah.
Is he able to handle all of that? What do we need now? Do we need quiet diplomacy, or do we need loud diplomacy in resolving this problem?
And it's situations like these that make some Nigerians say, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu may be a master strategist in terms of politics, but in terms of governance,
I am one person
that don't believe.
I have one person that has never believed that the president is a master strategist, because strategy is wholesome. Strategy is wholesome. You cannot be manipulative and deceptive in one area, and then you are not doing anything.
Well, you can be good at one thing and be terrible at another thing.
Solomon, I'm a student of strategic studies, so I understand what strategy is. Strategy is wholesome. When you talk about strategy, strategy is about warfare and going to defeat. You defeat for the common good of the people. When you talk about Alfred von, you know, all those German master strategists that even developed that word strategy, what did they do? They pushed up Germany, Austria, Prussia, in those days, in the terms of economy, in terms of warfare, in terms of living standard of people. You cannot be causing problem everywhere and you say you are master strategist.
Well, whatever side of the divide you're on, at least a lot of Nigerians will agree that in terms of governance, is definitely not a strategist.
Okay.
Because part of you being good good governor or good leader is bringing the right people to strategic positions.
Where are the right people?
Which obviously is lacking.
And so where is the strategy coming from?
Where politics.
Politics
at playing the chess, the game of politics.
To the detriment of your people. Nigerians are being killed. So what happens to that strategy in warfare? You are posting people who don't know nothing next to military as Minister of Defense, Minister of State for Defense.
Well, because of time, let's go over to the Senate, where they rescinded the controversial rule barring first-time senators from contesting as the Senate leadership, most especially the Senate President and the Deputy Senate President. What's your take on that?
I think they suddenly came back to their senses after a lot of pushback, because they didn't just wake up and rescind that decision. You know, there was a lot of pressure from outside quarters. I mean, you can't stop people who are something that you have benefited from, and you want to stop others from benefiting from it. I mean, it doesn't make sense. How can you say that you will elect your principal officers before people take oath of office, apparently saying that, well, if somebody like Kupus Odema, who wants to be Senate President, by the time he takes his oath of office, you have already appointed or elected principal officers, technically shutting him out. I mean, it doesn't work that way. Somebody like Ben Carlo, who is number 6 now and Deputy Senate President, was a first-timer when he became spokesperson of the House of Representatives.
Yeah.
And so...
Even the Senate President now, Akpabio, this is his first Senate.
This is his first Senate. No, this is second Senate.
Oh,
this
really?
is second Senate, yes.
I mean, he basically flew by that. A lot of Nigerians wouldn't even know he was a Senate before.
And so they had to amend that rule because there was a lot of pressure from outside. I don't want to believe that, that they came to their senses out of good reason. No, there was pressure, pushed back from outside. That was why they had to change it.
I mean, if the senators can get some of this good pushback from outside, then these people that are pushing back, where have they been?
Unfortunately, those people that are pushing back based on enlightened, selfish interests. They are not doing it for the good of Nigerians. If they were doing it for the good of Nigerians, we will have a better National Assembly. We will even have a better executive and a better judiciary. Unfortunately, the people that have the power to push back, which is the people power and politics, they are not doing that. We are divided along fault lines, ethnic, religious backgrounds and all of that. That is the core of Nigeria's problem. That is at the heart of our problem. Any day we overcome that, we'll be a better people.
Okay, quickly, the next 1 minute, NECO has revealed that over 35 million candidates have participated in its various examinations since its establishment 25 years ago. What's your overview of of NECO rather, this last 25 years? Would you say they've done better? Would you say they've been a better alternative to WAEC?
Well, I'm not sure they have been a better alternative, because if they were, our standard of education will not be where it is today. A lot of people that don't make WAEC
now use NECO as a lower alternative.
As a lower alternative to get into universities and all of that. And you know that WAEC is more acceptable because it's a West African thing. It's more regional than NECO. And you understand what happens in Nigeria. And so the only way to answer this question is, between then and now, our level of education, is it up there or is it down? That will answer the question. So let NECO itself do a self-assessment. But I know that if they do peer review with WAEC, they will know that WAEC has apparently done better than them.
Well, Mr. Okoro, thank you very much. It's always a pleasure talking to you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for having me, Solomon.
Yeah, that's Chukwuma Okoro, journalist and author of 2023 book, The Future of Politics. More than 70% of his prediction on the future of Nigerian politics have come to pass in less than 3 years. You can get his book on Amazon. Thank you very much again. So, for a quick look at what's happening outside Nigeria, U.S. President Donald Trump says a ceasefire is still in place with Iran despite a clash between Iran and U.S. naval destroyers in the Strait of Hormuz, for which both sides blamed the other. The U.S. said Iran launched missiles, drones, and small boat attack. Trump said Iran's trifled with us today, in quote. Iran's top military command, meanwhile, alleged the U.S. had targeted an Iranian oil tanker and another vessel approaching the Strait of Hormuz and carried out aerial attacks on several coastal areas. The flare-up comes a day after Iran's foreign ministry has said it was considering a U.S. proposal to end the war. In a further sign of the fragility of the ceasefire, early on Friday, United Arab Emirates Ministry of Defense said its air defenses were actively engaged with a missile and drone attack from Iran. Iranian state media initially reported explosions in the Strait of Hormuz, describing them as an exchange of fire with the enemy. Meanwhile, local media reported explosions were heard in Tehran. Not long after, a statement from Iran's top military command said U.S. aerial attacks struck the coast of Bandar Kamir, Sirik, and Qasem Island. It said it responded immediately by attacking U.S. military vessels, inflicting significant damage, and accusing the U.S. of a violation of the ceasefire. And that's the world news at 12 on Voice of the People 90.3 FM. But before we go, let's take a look at the headlines. Again, a court hears suit seeking to stop Jonathan's 2027 bid today. Aisha Yusufu says she's taking activism and advocacy into politics. On xenophobic attack, over 130 Nigerians seek return from South Africa. An insecurity, a gunman killed 13 in fresh Plateau attack with many injured. On education, over 30 million Nigerians wrote WAEC and NECO exams in 25 years. On the international scene, Trump says US-Iran ceasefire still in place after exchange of fire in the Strait of Hormuz. And that's a wrap on the World News at 12 from Voice of the People, 90.3 FM. I am Solomon Ofem. Good afternoon and thank you for listening.